Hello and welcome to my Magicka Templar lazy rotation build. The first thing that we're going to look at today here is the gear that I'm using. We are using 5-piece Burning Spell Weave, 5-piece Infallible Aether, and then 2 pieces on with a Maelstrom Inferno backbar. The only real noteworthy thing here is that we have a Burning Spell Weave Lightning Staff front barred. You don't have to, but it'll bump your DPS up a little bit if it's a lightning staff as opposed to an inferno staff. It seems counterintuitive because of the burning spell we've set, but it actually does buff your DPS because you get the ancient knowledge passive on all of your AoEs, which will transfer to your blockades and stuff. As soon as you swap to your front bar, you're suddenly on a lightning staff. That's going to buff your elemental blockade, which is doing a lot of damage because it's a flame blockade, and because you have a lot of uptime on burning from burning spell weave. And so you're really going to get a lot of damage on your elemental blockade with this build. And anything other that's noteworthy is that you could swap out the Zon for something like Valken Scoria if you needed to be a little farther out in a fight. It's just up to you, depending on which fight you're in. Alright, now that that's that, let's go look at our ability bar. We've got Inner Light and Structured Entropy, both double barred. Structured Entropy seems like a weird choice, but the main reason we do it is for this Magicka controller passive. Get an extra 2% max Magicka, which is really nice because max Magicka will help your scaling with your light and heavy attacks, which do a lot of damage. And it's also, max Magicka is also the only way to get your Purifying Light's copied damage up. And so that's super nice that your Purifying Light will also be doing more damage. So that brings us to the next ability on our front bar is Purifying Light. And then after that is Solar Barrage. Solar Barrage does a lot of damage and it empowers your light attacks. But if you need it to be in a range setup, this is the only melee ability that you'd ever work with. If you need to be ranged, you can swap this out for Jesus Beam. In the rotation, you'll do the exact same rotation, except you just won't use Jesus Beam until you get to about 20 to 25% in the fight. And you'll just use it where you would have Solar Barrage here. It still does a lot of damage. On a test dummy, you'll be doing maybe 1 to 2k less damage with Jesus Beam as opposed to Barrage. The next ability here is Blazing Spear. Blazing Spear doesn't do a whole lot of damage compared to something like Elemental Blockade, but it's very important that you use it so that you get your Burning Light passive. Burning Light does a lot of damage for a passive, and Blazing Spear is the only thing we have that can proc it. The last ability we have here is our ultimate, our Destro ultimate. This is the ultimate we're going to be using every time. Does a ton of damage. There's no reason not to use it. And then we go to, one last thing. It's also very important that we have Blazing Spear on this bar because we need our Piercing Spear passive. So you have to have an Adric Spear ability slotted to get 10% extra crit damage. And because we're wearing IA, we have a lot of crit chance, so that extra crit damage is just really nice to have. And then back bar, we got our 2 double barred. I have Elemental Drain on right now. We'll use Elemental Drain for a test dummy test. In a real raid, your healer will be applying Ele Drain, so it'll come out to about the same. In a real raid, you'll just slot your shield here, your Harness Magicka. Super good shield. And you get magic back for it, which helps your already infinite sustain. Next ability we have here is Vampire's Bane. It's really important that you use Vampire's Bane and Blockade of Fire because we're using Burning Spell Wave. So that's another ability that you can't really swap out. You need that extra dot to proc your Burning Spell Wave to get good uptime on it. Last ability, Blockade of Fire. Pretty basic ability. It's in every build ever. And then our last ability is Empowering Sweep for the ultimate. You never ever really use this. It's just here for that Adric Spear passive. So, super duper nice. you could use it in a fight if the boss was already in execute range and you knew that your Destro wouldn't ever be up. You could use it, but for the most part it just sits. So last thing before we look at rotation is our CP. Red tree, depends on where you're at, what you want with that. Green tree, super basic. I always do 75 here. Gotta get that treasure hunter. You're in a dungeon, 4 gear, you might as well have that treasure hunter. If you have 750 CP, there's no reason not to get that. 76 tenacity, 76 arcanist. Pretty basic, and then throw the rest into warlord, and you're good to go. The blue tree, this is what matters though. I've got a pretty solid mix of stuff. 40 Elfborn, 49 Expert, 38 Spell Erosion, 31 Mastered Arms. You could have, if you're using Jesus Beam instead of Solar Barrage, you could probably take some of these out of Mastered Arms. Solar Barrage does scale with Mastered Arms instead of Thaumaturge. So you could take some out of Mastered Arms, put into Staff Expert or Thaumaturge. I have a lot more than most builds have in a Staff Expert because we're doing a heavy attack rotation, which is where Infinite Sustain comes from. And then 48 into Thaumaturge. One important thing to note though is that I do have 75 into here for the Butcher passive. It's not the end of the world if you don't have this passive, but it's more of just icing on the cake really. Gives you just a little bit more light and heavy attack damage and execute range. And if you have one Bloodthirsty Jewel, I do 3 Arcane. If you have one Bloodthirsty Jewel, that's gonna make it even nicer. So let's go ahead and look at our rotation now. Okay. So before every fight, you're gonna hit your potion, hit your elemental drain, make sure those are up before anything. And then, oh, I didn't show you, I'm using the basic potions, like Essence of Spell Power. It's what every build uses, they're good potions. The Major Prophecy is a little redundant, but it costs the same to craft them with and without Major Prophecy, so there's no reason not to. And then, if you're in a dungeon where you're feeling kind of cheap, you can just use trash pots, and then use this, and you're still gonna be getting good numbers. But for the purpose of this video, we're gonna be using the spell power pots. Alright, so basically we're gonna start on the back bar. You're just gonna light attack before every ability. And so you're just gonna do light attack, blockade, light attack, vampire's bane. You're gonna swap bars, light attack, spear, light attack, barrage. And then while he's doing that, you hold down the heavy attack. Super easy animation cancel. You'll see he does a little animation here where he like squats down like he's trying to go to the bathroom, and then he throws out his thing. If you start holding a heavy attack during that, it'll totally cancel out the animation of him throwing his hand up in the air, and you'll be able to do your rotation even faster. So you do that, you hold down the click, and you do your heavy attack, and then you Purifying Light, bar swap it, and you're back where you started. So you just light it that. Bar swap that, and you're good to go. If you're doing a test dummy test, you just throw an elemental drain about every other rotation. It's about an 8-second rotation, and so if it's under so I'm using something called Action Duration Reminder, which is super nice. Shows you how much time you have left on abilities. Whenever that says that LA Drain is under like 10, you go ahead and renew it. So if you do this and bar back. Okay, so we get to this point in the rotation, you just throw on the elemental drain and bar swap it, and then you're good to go. Alright, let's go do a real test so I can show you guys kind of how this build works in a real test here. Get my secret path down here. My 6 mil. We are testing on a 6 mil because this build does hit around 40k, and at around 40k you can inflate your numbers a bit on a 3 mil, so just to go safe, we're just going 6 mil. After Somerset, most builds should probably be testing on a 6 mil. Alright. So I'll do a test real quick, and then we'll go over the combat metrics report when I'm done. Alright, so let's take a look at this. I did goof up a few times. A couple light attacks didn't go through, and then at the end there I accidentally used my potion during my heavy attack, which canceled my heavy attack. Pretty noob move right there. But yeah, so yeah, blockade of fire, like I was talking about earlier, just it does so much damage because you get the extra damage from the flame blockade to the burning targets, and targets are burned when burning spell leaf procs. That's part of its proc. And on top of that, it's flame damage, which is already going to proc burning, so ton of damage there. And then when you're on your lightning bar, it gets an 8% damage buff. Super good. So yeah, so light attacks, it looks like, are number one highest. So we've got our lightning light attacks and our flame light attacks, which together are about almost 7k. Yes, not bad, bad at all. This is what it looks like. Really good uptime on minor vulnerability because of IA. The real reason we use IA is for the extra heavy attack damage, though. We're not just cheesing a parse with high minor vulnerability uptime. Well, cool beans. Thank you all for watching my video. This has been the Magicka Templar, easy rotation, high health, heavy attack, noob build. Cheers.